Okay, let's call this meeting the Haysville Planning Commission to order. First item of business is a roll call.
Blood,
Here.
Rinky,
Here.
Franken,
Here.
Azir,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Atkins, Williams.
Here. Next item of business is the presentation and approval of minutes of June 8th, 2023.
I've already discussed this with Jonathan, but I found a typo on page 2 in the first full paragraph, halfway down. Carter stated if would, and it should be it would. So he knows about it, we'll make that change.
Is there a motion in there?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the correction.
I'll second.
Motion second to approve with corrections. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions because you weren't here?
Yep.
Yes.
You have to abstain
That
because you
would
weren't
be
here.
abstain.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item of business is the election of officers.
I feel like we just did this.
We did a year ago.
A year ago, in July.
Wow.
Are there any nominations or any motions?
Yeah, I'll nominate you for chairperson.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Anybody else? You want to remain vice chair?
I'm fine with that.
So moved. I guess we need seconds on those, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there any seconds?
I will second you being.
Thank you.
And I'll second her being vice chair.
Thank you. Jonathan, there aren't any committees or anything that we have to elect to. When we also have to elect Jonathan as secretary, I make that motion.
I'll second that.
Is there something else we're forgetting?
Not unless Debbie for historic,
I'm fine.
Yeah, I don't
then I'm
think
not
that's
worried about
too
having to do
formal.
that. It's just
Yeah.
the three main.
Okay. We're gonna vote on them all together. Any opposition to that? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? New business, item B, review of the appendix. Jonathan, you wanna present that?
Good evening. Before you is the historic preservation regulations that the historic committee had gone over in February. On page 6, under the procedure for designation of historic landmarks and historic district, the city shall provide that for adequate public participation in the process of recommending properties for nomination to the historic registers. This was added. On page 8, minor projects shall be reviewed by the planning and zoning administrator, was changed from preservation staff.
It's in red.
And on page 12, we made sure that all fees were moved to chapter 17. And staff is recommending approval of the proposed amendments.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to, are you ready for that?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll make a motion to approve the historic overlay as presented. Changes to it or?
Or historic preservation regulations.
A second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the changes to the historic preservation regulations. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Next, Jonathan, is the sign regulations.
Correct. We made changes to the temporary sign allowance to match Wichita's sign code in that on pages 11 and 13 for commercial and industrial districts, that there would be one sign per 15 feet of street frontage, and that there would be a space of 75 feet between signs, and that they would be allowed a maximum of 4 signs per lot in the commercial and industrial districts. And we also made sure that fees were all moved to chapter 17. And staff is recommending approval of the proposed amendments.
You say that 15 feet mirrors City Wichita?
Yes.
Any questions or comments?
Didn't City Wichita have like a lawsuit from Kobach or something, temporary signs?
This isn't temporary signs though, right?
Correct,
Permanent
temporary signs.
Okay.
Anybody have a motion?
Well, but it says temporary.
What page are you on?
I'm on.
Oh, 13?
It's on pages 11 and
Yeah,
13.
11. They both say temporary.
I don't know much about that lawsuit, I just saw the headlines.
Yeah.
I don't either, but. So this would be political signs, fall festival signs, Things of that
Banner
nature.
signs or of those types, like the banner signs or just placing a sign temporarily. We've had a few businesses that have banner signs out and we're just making sure that they, how many we actually want them to have out and wanted this addressed before now.
Explain to me one sign per 15 feet of street frontage, and then 75 feet between signs.
Yeah.
Which one?
11.
And 13, same language.
And what is it now?
One lot per frontage.
Right now, it's
Is what
one
works out.
sign.
Okay.
They're only allowed one sign. And we've had a few businesses for like street frontage that wanted to be able to put up a few more signs just for whatever they're promoting or if they're doing an opening. Cause I know like on Main Street, we have the liquor store, they have several temporary signs that they interchange. And so we're trying to control how many that they can have out. And that's where we're looking at how many they could have per frontage. And that they would have to be spaced 75 feet, which is.
Are they obstructing?
They're not
traffic view,
obstructing,
or-
but with the way this was originally written, that they were only allowed one. And then want to be able to more accommodating, be able to put out, if they need to put out a couple more, that they would be allowed to.
The part I still don't understand is the language reads, one sign per 15 feet of street frontage. And then directly followed by 75 foot between each sign.
Okay. So you have 100-foot frontage. We would then divide that by 15 feet to find out how many signs they could have. In between each of those signs, that would be 75 feet in between those two signs on the street frontage.
So why not just say 75 feet between each sign? The 15 feet seems unnecessary, unless,
Unless it's 15.
It
Somebody else
depends
has
on
it.
how much the frontage, the street frontage would be, because I don't believe all commercial industrial lots are the same.
they're not. But in your example,
Right.
100 feet divided by 75, you can get more than one sign in the frontage. You get two signs, spaced 75 feet apart.
Right. We were taking the street frontage and divided by 15 to know how many signs they could have.
But that's not the indicator, it's 75.
Mhm.
Well, what if that's 50 feet? Well, so now the 15 comes into play, or what?
No,
Maybe
I
it's
think you can get
15
one
feet
sign.
back, like your easement, maybe it's 15 feet from the curb. So this would not pertain at all to, for example, when campus has a football game and the booster club puts their signs out.
well, I would argue that it does.
Yeah. They put them out in an evening and they usually take them down that evening, but,
A day or a month is still temporary.
yeah.
Well, another issue is how often is temporary? They take this one down and then tomorrow they put another one, new one up.
It's
They
still gonna
would
be the
still
same
have to
regulation.
do a
It'd
sign
be
permit.
temporary, permanent.
They would still have to do a temporary sign permit, and at the moment, we are allowing 6 temporary permits per year, but they have to
Okay.
take it down. Cause it's only be up allowed for a month, they have to take it down for a month, apply for another one, they're allowed 6 of the temporary permits.
Right, I'm okay with that.
So I'm still confused about
Yeah.
the
Me too.
15 feet. Anybody?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just wondering if there is a
confusing.
commercial or industrial that is less than 15 feet of a frontage. I mean, because a typical drive is 10 feet for a single.
Yeah, a typical drive would be 24,
Right, so.
one lane in, one lane out,
But that's what I'm saying, so every frontage for a any frontage for a business is gonna be over 15 feet. Unless you're talking like a storefront, like on some of the smaller,
well, what about a corner lot? You've got 2 frontages, you space them out 75 and you max out at 4, that's 2 on each side. As long as you've got at least 75 on both sides.
right, so I guess,
I think the 15 feet is unnecessary and I think we should strike it.
Okay.
If you're pulling that directly from Wichita, I understand, and if we can figure out why that's in there, but I think it just confuses what we're trying to say.
Oh, okay.
How many signs, can I ask, how many signs were the issue? Did they
It
have
was
like 10 or
more,
15 signs out, or? I
we
mean, I've
haven't
never
seen
noticed
anybody
anything.
with a lot of signs, but then just like looking at the Quip Mart, how many they interchange signs, theirs are more spaced out. But then you go by the Main Street Liquor and how they have theirs spaced out, just trying to control how many signs they're having out at one time.
And is there a mechanism for a variance in the sign permit process if I have 68 foot of frontage and I want 2 signs? Is there a mechanism, is 75 the hard rule, or does it go to someone who could make a decision and override that?
Would do a variance and could override it.
Okay, and that goes to you?
It would either go to me or I can bring it before you.
No, I'm fine with city staff making a
Right.
decision, but I just wanna make sure that it's not, this is the policy and the number is the number. If it makes sense to do something outside that number because it's close, I just wanna make sure there's a mechanism in there to.
Yes, because we can make an adjustment.
Okay. Then, do we wanna strike that 15 foot and just leave it 75 feet between signs, a maximum of 4 signs per lot?
I'd rather it be stated that way than the footage,
The frontage?
of the frontage. If it's not,
Well, it could be, it's basically saying the same thing, that along your frontage where you wanna put a sign, you can have them 75 feet apart. Along a corner, it's 75 feet apart on both directions, and you have a max of 4.
but still, you're restricting a booster club promoting a school event or spirit. And
So, I guess I'm not
Well,
following what they do.
Using your example of the 68 feet, does that mean you don't get a sign because you're not at
Well,
least
you can have
75?
one regardless,
Okay,
because you're allowed at least one sign in front of your frontage. you can't have two unless you go through the administrative level to get a variance, because you're less than 75 feet.
But that's not what I read. It just says a maximum of 75 feet.
Right, but that's why I asked the question about, is there a way if
Well-
it doesn't meet this?
Yeah, I got that, but I think it should be a way where they don't have to ask for a variance. That, like, you're allowed at least one, but more than one have to be 75 feet apart. I would like to see it worded like that.
Well, then we leave in the one sign per frontage, 75 feet spacing, maximum of 4.
Okay.
Yeah?
That makes sense.
Okay.
And just the 15 feet goes away, and the rest of that reads,
Was that on both of them? 13, page 13 also.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, Booster Club problem. You're talking about small little like campaign yard signs, and how far apart do they space those?
And I don't know, they're maybe 10 foot. I mean, they're stacked. And I don't know that they still do that. But I thought it was really cool. I mean,
If they want to, I think the mechanism is you go through and get
a variance.
a variance.
Yeah.
And if it's for a day, city staff can make that decision. Yes, you can put them every 15 feet along the street. I mean, technically, it's not along their commercial business, unless it's in front of the
Right,
school.
that's why I
but,
was
yeah.
asking for those,
Yeah,
if they
it's-
would.
Under
Do they get a permit for that
exemptions
today?
would be like the
They
educational.
probably should, I don't know if they do.
Right.
Jonathan, did you hear that question? When they do Booster Club signs one day during homecoming or whatever it is,
Right.
do they fill out a permit for that?
No, they don't, but I believe as I'm looking under exemptions, they are exempt from,
Okay. That's,
Where are the exemptions?
that would be page 6, the end of page 5.
Am I exempt? Can I do whatever I want?
Planning commission captain.
Where does it say that?
It starts at the top of page 6.
Basically, top of page 6. If they're doing like flags or emblems, educational organizations, they would be
Okay.
exempt.
Okay.
So they don't need permits, but they would still need to meet the spacing requirements.
Where do you see that?
I don't know.
So
Otherwise, those
Jonathan,
political-
the business you keep referring to, that there was a problem with the signs, can you tell me how many signs that they put out?
6.
All in a row,
There's like 3 on each side
each side of their drive, or?
of the driveway, yeah.
I've just never noticed that that was, oh my gosh, look at those signs.
Well, I know they rotate them and everything too, but it's just trying to make things more clearer. How many they're allowed and everything.
so I don't know that number 1 really exempts them, because it's talking about flags. And then it's 35 feet high.
Be number 8 on page 7, wouldn't it, for them?
One,
Number 8 on page 7. Temporary signs for special events, public, charitable, religious, or
for,
fraternal.
Okay, yeah, there.
for.
Yeah, that could also-
For the school?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't,
48 hours.
number 1, I mean, it's an educational organization. Or are you saying because it's a booster club, it would not be?
No, I'm just saying number 1 is really just covering flags and emblems of a government body, and then, or it could be of an educational or religious organization. But it's really talking about
Flag.
a flag.
Yeah,
Flags.
I see that. And which one did you think that covered
Number
it?
8 on
The following
page
page.
16B7, or is that what you
Oh,
want?
yeah, the other number 8. I was like, I'm not,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that says window sign.
18 page
Yes.
7.
and what does it say about window signs?
The other number 8 is more applicable.
So, not reading this whole thing, number 7, on page 7, signs inside buildings and side windows are painted on windows. Is that allowed or is it not, Jonathan?
It is allowed.
That
It's-
is
it
allowed.
exempt.
Okay,
Everything we're reading here are exemptions to,
Okay.
and number 8,
and on page 8,
no, page 7, number 8.
no, I know that,
Oh.
but I moved on. I'm back to the signs.
I think that would be a public event if it's, homecoming game or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
And now that I'm thinking of it, they do in front of the middle school, those same kind of signs for like free lunch, free breakfast in the
Yes.
summer.
yes.
So we might,
We do it in the historic district for our farmer's market.
in
or,
violation
you
of
know.
city code.
I know.
Did you get a permit?
Yeah, I think we did.
So, do we need to add educational institution to number 8? On page 7, I think we do.
We can, yeah.
And then wouldn't B cause an issue too there, 8B? These signs are prohibited on public property and public right of way. So you'd still have to be so
Yep.
far back off the road.
And I agree with it shouldn't be in the public right of way, so I think I would leave that.
Yeah.
If you wanna put them on the other side of the fence that you own,
Prohibited on public, like a school's not public property. It's
no,
owned by
but the
the
right of way in front of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fence is.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, but these signs that I'm talking about are along the curb. They're
Well,
right
you're-
next to the street.
Well, then, they're in clear violation. I think that can be excused at the discretion of the sign permit person.
But that makes it really hard if the sign permit person changes and they're against that.
Well, I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. Because aren't political signs prohibited within the right of way?
All signs are prohibited in the right of way.
Not all signs.
Mm-mm.
I have permanent signage for traffic that I'm very certain can go on the right of way. Traffic signs, things like
Yeah.
Speed
that.
limit
those
signs.
kinds.
Yeah,
Well, it's a sign,
but
there's your sign.
temporary signs can't go in the right of way. Isn't that current city code?
Yes.
And I don't think, this is 48 hours instead of 2 months for a political campaign, so I think it's a little bit different, but
Yeah, number 9, the city has determined signs must be placed at least 15 foot back from the curb if the roadway has no
Yeah.
curb. Yeah. So it has to be 15
These
foot.
haven't been.
and if it gets any bigger than 2 foot tall, it becomes a sight problem for traffic, so I think I wanna leave that part, and
So what about a garage sale sign? That's not commercial, but it's a sign.
well, that's, what do they do for those?
Those are up to be, are 15 feet.
They're supposed
But we
to-
also make sure that they're not in the road right of way. So they're on the other side of the sidewalk. They can have them. But then you got like the issue right here at the corner here of Grand and Main
Yeah.
Street. There's no place to put a sign there, the way the curb is set up, or if there's even any grass. And then on the other side of that where the park is, you can't put anything there because that's city property. So you
Yeah.
can't
Well,
put a
there's a
sign.
sign up here on, I don't know if it's Sunset or which street, but, an estate sale sign. It's right on the corner.
It's
I
not-
know there was
The
one
open
estate
house
sale
signs are
that,
right on the corner.
It's not supposed to be there.
that's not supposed to be there.
So that is current,
City
is that a
code.
current code?
Yes.
Yes.
And we're not enforcing that.
Well, I'm not actively enforcing it. I don't know that the city isn't, but
Well, enforcement's a whole nother issue.
I know,
So a whole lot of things aren't enforced in this
I
city.
know. And if you're gonna enforce one, you need to enforce them all, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't wanna change the code to allow something that's more lax than current city code. I don't think that's our job.
No.
So let's leave this how it is with the issues as they are. If things continue the way they are, maybe that's fine. If it needs to be revisited by code enforcement, that's their purview, not ours.
So make no changes at this time.
Well, not make no changes to the putting temporary signs in the right of way. I still think we add educational institutions to number 8 on page 7, so that it's clear that that's an allowable temporary sign,
Okay.
and make the other changes to the frontage that we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
I think we beat this up pretty good.
Yeah.
Now the time to talk about electronic billboards.
You guys, no, it is not. You guys are ruining my record. Is there a motion?
Well, before we do, can we go ahead and approve this based on those changes, or do we need to wait for the
We can
changes?
include it, we can make a motion to approve it with those changes.
Okay.
Jonathan, you've recorded all of them, right?
Correct.
Okay, well then I'll make a motion to approve, the sign regulations with the changes that we've noted on page 7, number 8, and page 11 and 13.
A second.
Have a motion second to approve with changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. Next is site development regulations, parking.
Yes, we're just looking at the first one, the off-street parking requirements. The following changes were made to the parking attendant appendix due to changes in regulations use chart that we had done the month prior. Short-term residential rental was added, daycare limited was added, and daycare center was changed to daycare general to match the use chart. And we are recommending approval of the proposed amendments.
So we're adding land uses.
Under land uses, we added the short-term residential rental, the daycare limited, and changed the daycare center to daycare general.
Explain to me what short-term residential rental would be.
Airbnb.
Okay.
But short-term residential rental should already fall under the subdivision regulations for off-street parking for that house when it was built, right?
Correct.
So is this more or less
So we're
than
just
that?
matching everything
Okay,
that is in the definitions from what we did last month, and then also what's in the subdivision.
this is how our subdivision code is written. 1 per sleeping room. If I build a 10-bedroom home, I have to provide 10 parking spots for it.
That is, I believe, Georgie had pulled from either Wichita or Derby. We'd have to look at the subdivision to see, make sure everything matches.
Where is the daycare? What page are they?
That's, there are no page numbers, it's this one.
It's right there with the short term.
So I have a question. So if the single family and the short-term residential rental are the same, and the single family only has one per dwelling unit. So a dwelling unit would be the house, right?
Yep.
Not per sleeping room. Right?
I don't think that matches our code.
We'll have to take a look at them.
Let's look at this all a little closely, because I don't think we're gonna be able to sort this out tonight. That's the only changes, those two?
Correct.
Well, and I'm looking at public and private educational facilities, which I take to be schools. One per teacher / employee plus 5. Campus high school is not gonna meet that with all the students not having required stalls. If we build that again with this requirement, everybody's taking the bus. Oh, I guess it's in high school there. So elementary school needs 1 per teacher and employee plus 5. Elementary and secondary says visitor spaces, but doesn't have a requirement. Top of the next page,
What was that, plus 5 visitor spaces?
I guess, maybe. Does that seem like it's enough for a school?
Well, you don't have the vehicles for an elementary and secondary because students aren't driving.
No, I understand that.
But employees do.
And the employees are covered, but only 5 for an entire elementary school seems like it's not enough. And I get that not all parents are there at the same time, but it occurs to me that there is a situation where there would be more than 5 parents there.
Holidays, the holiday parties.
And I don't think you can force them to build this parking lot for one event a year, but. Well, in addition to the other stuff we've talked about, Jonathan, would you go back through this? I don't know that 1 per dwelling unit jives with our subdivision code. That doesn't seem right to me.
Okay.
Well, this is required spaces, so they can have additional parking, right? For single-family residential.
I'm trying to remember what the code is, and Jonathan, I don't know if you've got it in front of you yet or not, but I thought it was a minimum of 2 per single-family residence.
That's what I thought, too. But then didn't we just talk about duplex, and duplex was more? Because the duplex is 1 per dwelling unit also.
But duplex is 2 DUs,
Yeah.
so that's 4.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Where would that be under?
It's not worth hashing out now. I think, I'm gonna suggest we table this till
Okay.
our next meeting. I don't know that we need to have a special meeting for this, but I think we have enough questions that I don't know that we're gonna be able to move forward without some pretty serious discussion.
Okay.
So, all in favor of tabling this, can I have a second for the table?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Those opposed? No old business?
None.
No correspondence?
I do not have anything unless, do you have anything, Debbie?
Nope.
And nothing off agenda?
The only thing I have for off agenda is that our next meeting would be August 10th, looking at the first review of the subdivision regulations, and then setting up a public hearing on September 14th.
And if we're gonna review subdivision regulations, it's fine that we do that at the same time.
Okay.
Item 8,
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
motion and a couple seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, everybody.